Welcome to Excel Basics Plus. In today's session, we're actually going to be having a look at how to create a pivot table. And along the way, we're actually going to put in some formulas and we're also going to create a table out of some of the data so that we can actually create some easier formulas referencing tables rather than physical cells. So in the data we've got today, if you remember, we were dealing with Bob's fruit and veg store in our last video. We're now looking at the budgets by salesperson and how we can actually drill down on that data. So straight off the bat, we can see what we are budgeting for the sales to be by salesperson and the number of items that each of the salespeople manage in the fruit and veg space. So I've already got the names already assigned to the items. We've got the fruit color, the type, whether it's a fruit or a vegetable, and we've also got all of our item numbers so that we can actually drill down to an item level. This can also be useful to be used, as I've spoken before, about having a list reference document, and then you can create drop-down menus or drop-down lists so that you can make sure that you're getting the right stock name. So first thing, what we might actually do is we might actually look to create a table. Now, the reason we're going to create a table with the salesperson, the budget, and the number of items managed is that we're actually going to use a formula in the budget piece here for this data set, but we're going to reference all of this data. So we haven't used tables in the past when we've referenced data. We've just used the range. So we would actually do like a VLOOKUP and we would reference this range being J4 through to K10. This time we're actually going to reference the entire table. Now, to create a table, firstly, we don't need a total row in the data when we create a table. So let's get rid of that. Okay, so we get rid of our total column. There is a hard-coded total row that can be created in a table. Now, there's a number of ways you can do this. You can highlight all of that data, and you can go into your ribbon on the Home tab and actually format as table, choose which color scheme you like, the header colors, all that sort of thing, or you can create your own. You can also just click in the top left cell and click on Format as a Table, choose which one you want. Or you could be just in that cell J3 and hit the button Control and T at the same time, and you can see the marching ants have instantly ringed around all of the data that it believes should be in the table. It's asked you, is the data correct, J3 to L10? Well, it is, because we've got items managed in there as well. And you're telling it that my table already has headers. So it's going to convert salesperson, budget, and number of items managed into the headers. If they were not headers, you would uncheck that, and you would actually then be able to type in headers once you had started the table. So our table's got headers. We're going to tick that box. We're going to press OK. All right, and the default color scheme, which is the dark blue and white, comes up as the table. And as you can see, we can now actually filter this table by anything we need to. So we could filter by salesperson, or we could filter by budget, smallest to largest, largest to smallest, or we could even filter by the number of items that each manager manages. So we can see that, you know, Alison has the lowest at 8, but she also has the lowest budget at 20,000. Now, the other thing that we can do here is we can actually name this table. So it's similar to defining a range. So all we need to do, whilst we've clicked in this table anywhere we like, up in the top left corner on the Table Design tab in your ribbon, you've got Table 2 written. Now, that's because I've previously had another table, and it would have been Table 1. So this one, for instance, I want to call Table S person. So TBL S person. You can name it whatever you want. Don't put numbers in the front. So Table S person, and then that way you've now defined that range of cells within that table is actually named as TBLS person. So you can now reference that in, as an example, in a VLOOKUP as the table range. Instantly it knows that the range for a VLOOKUP would actually be all of the cells in J3 down to L10. So what we're actually going to do now is create a formula which actually provides a dollar budget based on each person's remit. So if we talk about Brett, for instance, Brett's our first one here. He's got apricots, and we want to actually work out what the budget is for apricots for Brett. Now we're going to make this very simple. We're literally going to say that every item costs exactly the same and that the sales are going to be exactly the same across the board. So what we're saying is that out of Brett's $47,500 budget, we're going to divide that by 19 so that each item he manages has the same budget amount. Now, there's a whole pile of different ways you can do that, and it can get more complex, based on the price of goods, how long they've been in stock, all those sorts of things. But we'll keep it simple, and we'll literally just divide the $47,500 budget for him by 19, and that way each of the items he manages will be the same. So the way we're actually going to write this formula is we're going to be using VLOOKUPs because the data is in that output that we require it, where the salesperson will be the lookup and the data outputs are to the right of that salesperson. So what we want to do is firstly start with looking up the salesperson, and we will be looking up the total budget and dividing that by another VLOOKUP, which is looking at the items managed. So we're also going to put some error handling around this for the just in case. So we're going to start with equals if error. So there's our start for the error handling, open bracket. The first thing we're going to do is say VLOOKUP, and we're going to look up Brett, and comma, we're going to now reference the table. Now, you see how the mouse changes to a little arrow as I get to the top corner there? Well, that's actually selected that table and inserted the name TBLS person, which is what we reference this table as. So you can either write tables person, or you can get the mouse to the top left corner of the table, and as soon as you see that black arrow, click your left mouse button and it will actually select that table. Now, the other thing you can do if you don't want to select the entire table is you can move to the top of the cells you want and drag it across. So for instance, now I'm only looking at table S person, the salesperson to the budget columns. Now, another good reason that you can do this is that if, for instance, you had I'm not sure, maybe an employee number in column J, and then the salesperson was in column K, then the budget, then the items managed, and you don't have the lookup from a employee number, you could then say, okay, well, I've got the salesperson in this column. I can select the salesperson onwards to get my my query, and that way you could not have to use that first column that may not be a reference point for you. So, table S person. Now, what do we want? We are looking at the budget, which is in the second column, and we want the exact result. So we're going to say false and close bracket. So right now we've said if error. Look up the salesperson's name, look it up in this range, and give me the budget. The next thing I want to do is I want to divide that budget amount, so divide, and I want to divide it by the items that the salesperson manages. So the way to do that, of course, is, once again, it's a VLOOKUP. We're just dividing a VLOOKUP by a VLOOKUP. So VLOOKUP, once again, the salesperson, table S person, and this time we want column 3, which is the items managed, and we want the exact result, so we use false, close bracket. So now we've got two VLOOKUPs, and we've still got this if error that we need to close. If there is an error, I want it to tell me, and I want it to say check. So I'm going to put check in parentheses and close that bracket off and press enter. So straight away, we have $2,500 is the budget for Brett on apricots. So with the $2,500 budget there, if I double click this to drag the formula the whole way down, you'll notice that everything is $2,500. Now that just comes down to the data set. We literally have 100 items and the budget is 250,000. So 250,000 divided by 100 is $2,500 each. Now, just so you can see the total in this table, if you go to table design in your ribbon, there is a total row just here, and it will actually give you the options here, a little drop down, and it gives you which option you can choose. Now, we need some, and it's already totaled up the very far right column to show you that 100 items. Okay, now we now have a data set of 100 items. As I said, I'm keeping it simple, but there's 100 items on this list, and we're now going to have a look at creating a pivot table to put this data into a bit better output so that we can actually use it a bit more easily. So a couple of choices here. A pivot table looks for a range of data, which means that we can either use all of that, we highlight it all, or we could create it as a table. We could actually do exactly what we did here and create this as a table and use that as the range. Or we can just click on any cell in this range and it will look for the range array similar to how a table looks for data as well. Now, the easiest way to do it is click on the Insert tab in your ribbon, Pivot Table. It will now ask you which range or table do you want to use. Now we're using a range because obviously we didn't convert our data into a table, so it actually confirms that it's B3 to G103. Now here's where you need to make the decision on whether or not you create a table or you leave it as a range. If this data is a fixed number of items, i.e. we've got 100 items in here, and that is it. You're not going to have any more line items being added, then that's fine. Use a range. That's easy. If you're going to add to this data, then it is better to have a table because the range in here will be listed as a table, which means as you expand the table, the data is automatically pulled into the range. Now, for the sake of this, we're going to say, no, we are not going to increase more than 100 items on our list. So we're literally just going to use this range. If you are working with data, which is it's just a one-off, which means it's just the data that you've got, then that's fine to use it like that as well. It then asks you, do you want to use a new worksheet or do you want to put it somewhere into an existing worksheet? Now that could be in this worksheet or it could be in the quick lookup tab that we've already worked on in a recent video. I'm going to just have this come into a new worksheet. So the data stays here on the Department Budgets tab and it will create a new sheet for you. Press OK. Okay, so sheet 4, we're going to call this the Pivot tab, just so we know where the data is. Just change the name of that. Now, here is the pivot table. It's currently called Pivot Table 2. We can call it whatever we want. PVT budgets. Straight away, we've now named this. Very similar to how we named this table range. We named this table range as, if we just go back to home, this table range was named as TBL person from memory, S person. So the pivot tab, we come in here and we are going to tell Excel exactly the data we want and in what order we want it. For instance, we want to have a look at, let's get data sorted by a salesperson. we can drag the salesperson name down into the rows, and you can instantly see it's given you the row labels. These are all the salespeople. The next thing we might want to do is bring the budget down. Now the budget is a value, it's a dollar value. So we should really be bringing that into the values box there, and it instantly defaults to a general number. If you want to change these, if you right click and number format, or you can go to format cells. Number format takes you straight to the number format, obviously, and accounting, because we are looking at, we're doing a budget, so we're looking at dollars. So now we can instantly see the value of the budget. Now we know that's correct because it's exactly the data that we've got in this table here. Well, the next thing we want to see is what is the breakdown of fruit color as an example. And we can instantly see, and I think from a data perspective, that should actually be item color, but we can fix that later. We can instantly see that it does appear that the salespeople are actually only selling certain colors. Tom's the only one that's got green and other. So straight away, you can instantly see that sort of information. The next thing you can actually do is you can break it down by type. Now, it's all about how you order the data in here. For instance, I've put in salesperson and then fruit color, and now I'm putting in type. Now, straight away you can see there's fruit and fruit for Tom, and then you can sort of see it's vegetable, vegetable. Now, we've got two lots of fruit in Tom's name. If we switch type and fruit color around, so click and drag fruit color below type, we've now got fruit and green and other. So it's now grouping it by fruit rather than by color. The last thing that we can do is have a look at the actual item, and that then instantly tells you the individual items that Alison has, Brenda has, and so on, and by color. Now you can also put the item number in there. We drag that down, and it instantly gives you that item number. Now here's the thing: the format that you've got it in. It's got subtotals all over the place. It's subtotaling Alison. It's subtotaling vegetable. It's then subtotaling red by Alison, the beets, the 5004, all this sort of thing. So what we want to do is we actually want to take off subtotals. If you go to Design tab and you go to Subtotals, do not show subtotals. It's instantly taken them out. So now you can see at Alison's level, you can see $2,500 for all of these items, and there's no subtotals in here anymore. The next thing that you might want to do is turn off grand totals for rows and columns and just put them on for columns. So that means when we scroll all the way to the bottom, we can now see the grand total, 250,000. Now, if you had multiple columns here with multiple data sets, it may add those values and put them into totals by column value. The next thing is that this format, it's in a tabular sort of format, and what we actually want to do is we want to have this data reading across the page. So under report layout, you can actually show in the tabular form, i.e. tabs, and it instantly puts it into that column value data. Now, click in the top left and double click on one of the joins here between the cells, and it sorts the data a bit easier for you. Now we've got the plus or minus here. This is literally to compact or expand at each level. So you can expand it to whatever level you like. You can turn those off. Under the Analyze button or the Pivot Table Analyze, you've got your plus or minus buttons here. You can actually turn them off by clicking on that icon there. Now what we've got is each salesperson's name, the type of item they've got, the color of the item that they are managing, the actual item itself, the item number, and the budget at a line item. Now, if you did want to subtotal by Alison so that you can actually see what her total is, you can right click and subtotal salesperson. And straight away, Alison's subtotal is 20,000. We scroll down, Brenda's is 65,000, but you've got the line item data here. Now, here's something else that may assist. If you drag your salesperson up to the filters, you've taken their name now out of your actual report. Now you've just got all of your fruit, and if we scroll all the way down, then all of your vegetables, and then by color, by name, by item number. Say you just want to have a look at Norman's budget. You can click on Norman's name, press OK, and now you've just got his budget coming up. If you want to select multiple items, you need to check the box, and let's have a look at Norman and Sally's results. Well, now we've got the total results, but we don't have their name, which is why it's always good to have their actual like an ID number or something like that, so you can attach it. So in this sense, it's easier just to have the one name. Straight away, we can see this is Norman's results, and he's looking at a total budget of $30,000. So there's a lot of different things you can do in pivot tables. You could even go down the track of moving your fruit colors across to the top, so that if we look at clearing this cell, choose all, green, other, red, yellow, fruit, this is all the salespeople, but now we can actually see by item number or by item exactly what the budget is, and then by fruit color it's split up. So now when we go down the bottom, we can actually see that the grand total's changed. $77,500 for that color, 47 for that color, 42 for that, and 82 for that. So that's another way of actually moving your data around. And that could be, for instance, if you're looking at invoicing by date, you put your dates across the top, and then that way you can actually see the aging of how old bills are, things like that. So lots you can do within a pivot table, and I'll spend some more time on another video working through pivot tables and how you can change them to suit what you need, and we'll work on getting some more data so that you can really break down numbers and see what suits for what you require pivot tables to do in your day-to-day. In the meantime, don't forget to like and subscribe to videos, turn on your notifications so that you see when new videos drop, and look out for the next video. And amongst all else, keep practicing. Thanks. Bye.